The mistake I'm going to share with you today could not only get you in trouble with the IRS, it can decimate your personal finances. So if you are a professional content creator, if you desire to be a professional content creator, I'm going to need you to listen to this. It's a very big deal. So when I first started creating content way back in 2012 with my blog, I've now been a content creator since then, a YouTube creator for the last 8 years, and a full-time profitable YouTube creator for the last 5 years. I was under the impression that creating content was free. That was the whole thing, right? Like YouTube was supposed to be, it's totally free to do this and anybody can become, YouTube famous and anybody can make tons of money on YouTube and it costs no money. And that's sort of true. You can absolutely post to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can create a blog, although that would cost a little bit with hosting costs and things like that. But for very minimal buy-in, anyone can put themselves out for public consumption. However, for many of us, the thing we create content about costs money. And I'm not just talking about the obvious. Obviously, if you're a fashion and beauty vlogger or blogger, you've got to have up-to-date fashion and beauty, and that's going to cost you money. I mean, maybe it won't once you're really, really famous and people are gifting you things all the time. But are those things that you actually want, or are you, like I do, or like most of us do, going out and buying things that you love so that you can review them and then you can bring them to your audience? That costs money. Maybe you are a travel vlogger, also me. We're going to get into that in a minute because travel costs a little bit of money. Maybe you are like my friend Jess. Her channel is Okla Roots and she does sewing tutorials. So Jess spends a ton of money on fabric, on sewing machines. I know that she does because we share the same accountant and we talk about money stuff quite frequently. But for most people, if you have a painting channel, you're going to have to pay for canvases. You're going to have to pay for new brushes. If you're filming videos about a topic that requires equipment, that's going to cost you a lot of money. And even if you're not, as your channel grows, you're going to have things you're going to have to pay for. And a lot of people think, especially in the realm of either someone who's got a hobby and they want to turn it into a content creation business, or if you're a travel vlogger and you want to be able to like monetize your travel, you think, oh, well, this will be great because I can just write off all of the money I spend on travel. And that's sort of true. So before I go any further, I want to say that nothing I say today is as a professional money person. I am not an accountant, I am not a lawyer, and I am not even a bookkeeper. I actually employ a bookkeeper and an accountant because I'm very, very bad with numbers. But what the professional bookkeeper and the professional accountant has taught me over the years is what I'm going to share with you today. So let's talk first about the IRS and a hobby. One thing that I think is kind of it's even talked about in movies and things, is this idea that start an LLC and then you can write off all your travel. And that's what rich people do. And let's remember, first of all, when we talk about a write-off, if you're a Schitt's Creek fan, there's a scene with David that's coming to mind right now. Well, you don't have to pay for it because you just write it off. And as you remember, the fabulous Eugene Levy says to David, David, you still have to pay for it. So let's start there. Just because you write something off doesn't mean you don't have to pay for it. When you spend that money, you don't have to pay taxes on that portion of your income. So let's say, for example, I spend $10,000 just because I'm not good with math and it's easier for me to do numbers with $10,000 on a solo adventure to Europe. And it being solo is going to be important in just a second. So tuck that away. And I can tell my accountant, listen, the trip was just to film. The only reason I took the trip was to film videos. I can then take that $10,000 and when I go to do my taxes, she will take that $10,000 and move it from income to expenses. And once it's in expenses, I don't have to pay income tax on that money. Now, depending on your tax bracket, how I like to view it is essentially it is a 30% discount for me on that travel, which that's not nothing. So on a $10,000 trip, my 30% discount is going to be $3,000 and I won't have to pay taxes on that $10,000. Okay. There's other calculators if you want to be more specific about that. I'm not even sure that I explained it great. Hopefully I did. Okay. So let's start there. A write-off doesn't mean you don't have to pay for it. You still have to pay for it. And also, basically, it means you just get a discount on whatever it is that you spent, okay? Here's where all of that gets super, super tricky, especially if you're a new content creator. Now, the IRS does give you some leeway. The last time I checked, it was 3 years. Always check with a tax professional. You're going to hear me say that about 1 million times in this video because I don't want you to sue me for giving you wrong information. But essentially, the last time I checked, you have 3 years for your business to not post a loss before the IRS will classify your business as a hobby. Once your business gets classified as a hobby, you cannot write off anything at that point. And that is actually really, really bad. You do not want that to happen. When I first got my wonderful accountant, Jennifer, and Jennifer, if you are watching this, which you're probably not, I say this with all love and I adore you. And you know that. She's been my accountant now for going on 6 years, I think. I literally could not do my business without her. She did not really know who I was. She didn't believe in me the way I believe in me, by the way, nor should she. But I knew that this business would be profitable. At that point, it was not profitable. And she gave me a very long disclaimer about the fact that I had to be very careful that I did not spend more than I was making year over year over year. You do have a couple, 3 years to figure this out. And that's because just like with any business, you usually spend more than you make in the beginning. That's not only understandable, it's what you should do. So for instance, if you think you can make it as a travel vlogger and you're just starting out, you are 100% going to spend more on travel that first year. However, keep in mind, only 3% of YouTubers ever reach monetization. So your odds are still very, very low of ever becoming profitable enough to pay for that travel. But if you even think you might be good at it, you're going to have to spend money to travel in order to start your business. So what I do want you to do is start keeping track of expenses from day one. Even if you have a baby channel, even if you're starting with nothing, if you at all intend to become a professional in this space, and that's across all of the different ways that you can create content. And I think I need to stop disclaiming that because the reality is most of us that are YouTube creators are also creating on other platforms as well. So, you know, we're all kind of in one big happy family. Just most of us have one area that's like our emphasis. So maybe your emphasis is TikTok, but you're also doing YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to stop saying that disclaimer. Let's just assume that, okay? So if you intend to become a professional in any of those spaces, you need to be keeping your receipts. So what do you need to be keeping receipts for? And I think this is good for you if you are a baby professional or even if you're someone that's been doing this for years. Sometimes I think we miss write-offs, okay? So for me, obviously that's going to be all of my equipment. Later today, I am headed to the Apple store to pick up my new iPhone. That is a business expense for me because I film all of my videos on my iPhone. I use my MacBook would be obviously a business expense. That is what I use exclusively for work. Things like subscriptions. So I have a subscription to Epidemic Sound, which gives me royalty-free music. I also use Storyblocks, which gives me, small video clips and things like that. Speaking of which, I need to get on there and find out if I need to add this channel or if I can, if that's going to cost me more money. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping I can just add this channel. If anybody's on Storyblocks and knows the answer to that, let me know. So also you're going to have things like I just talked about. I have to pay my accountant every year. That is a qualified business expense. I actually have a bookkeeper because I am terrible with numbers, and I actually believe I have a little bit of dyscalculia. My sons both have dyslexia. I've always struggled with reversing numbers. Like if you give me a phone number, I have to read it, I have to write it down and then read it back to you because I'm so bad about transposing the numbers. So I have a bookkeeper. So that's an additional cost. You're going to have maybe upgraded internet. So if you work from your home, there's a certain percentage of all your services in your home, including electricity, water, all of those sorts of things that are tax deductible. We pay for a much higher speed of internet because I need it, right, to be able to upload and download my videos. By the way, we finally got fiber here. Game changer. It used to take me like 2 hours plus to upload a video to YouTube. Now it takes 10 minutes. I can't even tell you how that transformed my business. So if you have fiber available in your area, you should get it because that changed everything for me. So also expenses like if you have an employee, obviously. Annalise is my virtual assistant. She works for me 10 to 15 hours a week. She's a contract employee. I don't actually have any employees of the LLC. And that's going to relate back to why I can't write off all of my travel when I travel with Scott in just a second. So there's expenses like that. Maybe you also have expenses like the products that you buy to review for your viewers. I have a line item titled product review samples because I will buy things to review them so that I can let you guys know if they were good or not. I never work with a brand that I have not purchased with my own money. And a lot of times I'm purchasing things that it isn't that I wouldn't purchase that if I didn't have a YouTube channel, but I might wait for it to go on sale, or I might only buy one of the thing instead of 3 of the thing. All that to say, there are lots of line items. I will have obviously my travel expenses, obviously all of my airfare and all of that. But here's where it gets tricky with travel specifically. So if you are a travel vlogger, scoot your chair on up, get out your notepad, maybe replay this section multiple times, do more research on your own. If I travel with Scott, as we are getting ready to do to Italy and Switzerland, I cannot write off 100% of my hotel stays in Italy and Switzerland. Even though I am filming this trip, even though we are doing this trip for content, Scott is not an employee of my LLC. I could make him an employee, but that gets complicated and then I end up having to pay a lot more fees and things for him, so it's really not worth it. But what it means is I can only write off 50% of my hotel stay. I can only write off my airfare, not his airfare. When we go out to a restaurant, I can only write off my portion of the meals. This does get a little gray when it comes to buying a meal that is for review. Every year we kind of have a little different conversation on that. And I want to say this about the IRS. They are still not caught up to the creator economy. There have been a lot of rulings on different things, like if you can write off hair and makeup. The answer is sort of. Because there was actually a case on that where someone tried to write off their nails, and because they said they did a lot of content where they showed their hands and they showed their nails. Clearly that is not something I'm spending money on right now. And the judge ruled that no, you cannot write that off because you're not only wearing those nails while you're filming, you have them on all the time. When I get my hair done, this is so crazy. If I get my hair done, I can write off the blowout and the style if I then go and film videos with that blowout and style. I cannot write off the haircut. You cannot write off the hair color because you are using both of those in your daily life when you're not working. So get a good accountant is the bottom line, but the rules are strange and there's not, like I thought that there were very specific rules for content creators. This you can write off, this you can't. It's not that. You have to be able to stand before a judge and make a reasonable case for why this expense was justified and why you needed to spend this money for your business. So Just tread lightly. When in doubt, don't try to write it off. I think that's probably the smartest way to go, because should you get audited and they rule against you, you're going to have to pay it. Like, this is serious. It's not just nothing. You're going to have to pay all of the taxes that you would have had to pay, plus penalties for all of the time that you did not pay those taxes. In my case, every time I do something and it's on film that I did it, I feel very confident because I have video evidence that the thing that I tried to write off, I actually did in a video, and I actually made a profit off of it. I also use Intuit. That's what my bookkeeper used. QuickBooks is also through Intuit. I find it amazing when it comes to tax time. I used to hate tax time. Now my bookkeeper just sends it over to my accountant, and they usually come back with a few questions for clarity, and then bada bing, bada boom, they do some kind of magical, accounting wisdom, and it's all taken care of. But whether you are starting from scratch, whether you're making $50,000 or $100,000, please make sure you are keeping good records and you are taking your business side of things very, very seriously, because I promise the IRS, or whatever the tax body is in the country where you are, they are going to take it very seriously. It's why I always laugh when people say that YouTube isn't a real job. I'm like, I would love for you to talk to my accountant and my bookkeeper about how much this is a real job. So let's say you've been making all this money. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. You are now monetized on YouTube. You're making some money, and you're doing more and more travel because you're finally making some money, and you can put that money back into the business, which, by the way, that's what you should do. If your channel is all about cruising, you should take more cruises in order to film. I want to make sure that you are keeping very careful track that you are not overextending yourself financially. So let me tell you a story about me. And it did end up working out in the end, but it almost didn't. There was a year, and if you follow me on my other channel, you probably know what year this was. I spent $50,000 on travel in 1 year. There were multiple cruises. There were multiple luxury vacation stays. There was more than one trip to Europe. If you just clutched your pearls, those of you that are travel vloggers are like, no, I could totally see that. If you're not a travel vlogger, that seems outrageous. But traveling in a way that is, commiserate with what people want to watch costs a lot of money. My profit margins on my travel content are not great. So you want to always be evaluating your return on investment. If you are spending, it's quite honestly why I stopped filming much Disney World content at all, because my return on investment there was so very low. The hotels got so ridiculously expensive. The food got so expensive. The tickets themselves got so expensive. And those types of videos were not bringing in the income for me that they had been previously. So I had to have a very serious conversation with myself and sit down and say, I'm spending all this money on these trips, but how much am I actually making on those videos? And what I found when I ran the numbers is that the Disney World videos, although they would perform very well, they generally didn't have a lot of affiliate links. Those customers weren't necessarily converting over to Patreon or buying my e-course or doing any of those other things. So it was not a profitable destination for me. And that kind of broke my heart, because I loved traveling to Walt Disney World. I loved making the vlogs. I loved bringing everybody else the vlogs. But from a business standpoint, it was not profitable. Cruises, on the other hand, are wildly profitable for me. Those videos do much, much better. The cruises are a lot easier, especially if I cruise by myself from a tax perspective, because I'm traveling alone. The food is inclusive. It's very easy from a bookkeeping perspective. And I found that cruise customers were much more likely to watch all of my other videos, whereas Disney World viewers were watching Disney World videos and nothing else. The people who were watching my cruise content were also interested in my lifestyle content and travel to other places and all of these other things. So that was a much better use of my money. Some of you are not actually ever looking at that. Maybe you're making content that you love and you're passionate about, but it's costing you a lot of money and you're not looking at your return on investment to make sure that that money that you're spending is profitable for your business. Now, in the very beginning, you're just simply not going to know. But once you're starting to see growth and once you're starting to see numbers, this is where your analytics really come into play. You've got to look at how much money did that video make? How many, in my case, how many patrons did I make off of that video? Because that tells me what my audience wants more of. Also, I really love Patreon. If y'all want me to do a whole separate video about Patreon, as someone who really craves, desires, and needs community in order to feel successful in my life, that has been how I have found that. And so the fact that it helps support the channel is huge, but also it's created just this beautiful, I absolutely love it. So if you want me to talk more about Patreon, please put that down in the comments because I'd love to make a whole video about that. But I've had to make hard choices over the years about content that I am making based on what was profitable. And I know that we get a little about that because we all want to feel like we are filming things that we're passionate about and that we would do anyway. Let me be clear. 100% yes. And the truth is, I still go to Disney World. I just don't film about it anymore. I just use my own money and I go and I have a good time. And maybe I bring back a few clips or like I'll do a review or I'll do a shorter video. I don't really do Disney World vlogging anymore because it's not profitable. And this way I can just enjoy it because I love it. So you're going to have to decide that for yourself. Just don't do what I did. And that year that I spent $50,000, I grew by a lot. Also, though, I brought home nothing. And this is what I want to end this video with. I realize that this has been a lot of information because that's just, if you hired me to be a consultant, this is what you would get. I am going to be a little bit all over the place, but I'm passionate about all of it. And the people that have worked with me seem to like that style. So anyway, I'll put information below both on how to buy my e-course, which is called So You Want to Be a YouTube Creator. It's 5 weeks that really force you to focus. And the people that have gone through all 5 weeks, which is not very many of those of you that have purchased it. So if you have purchased it and you are not putting in the time, you kind of got to do that. You can't just purchase it and hope that it will magically work. You have to actually do the work. But also, if you have an existing channel, you can hire me as a one-on-one consultant, and all of that information will be down in the description box. It's also jenlaforge.podia.com. So if you're interested. So what was I saying? Let's end with this. Are you paying yourself? Because although any small business owner will tell you that you not getting paid in the beginning is not only reasonable, it's to be expected, there comes a point where you need to be paying yourself actual money. If you're not, then what you are doing is a vanity situation. It is not a profitable business. And I think you have to ask yourself, is it really worth all the time and effort I'm putting into this if I'm not able to pay myself an actual income? If I'm not able to put money into a retirement account? I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to start an SEP, which is like a 401k equivalent for people who are small business owners. I'm able to put money into that every single month. I'm able to help pay down the mortgage on this house. I'm able to contribute to our household income with the money I make as a content creator. This, at this point, is a much bigger job than I really wanted when I started out. It's 100% 40 hours plus at this point. I love it. I don't really keep track because like on the weeks when I just feel burnout, I might do nothing. But if it's not profitable, if I'm not able to put money back into our household because of what I'm doing, it's not worth it. I don't love it when we make it seem somehow tawdry. It's not a great word. That's such a great old-fashioned word. We need to bring that back. When we make it seem somehow tawdry or tacky, that we make money as content creators. And I'm not gonna lie, I think sometimes we reinforce that on our own. We say things like, I would do this for free. I love what I'm doing, so even if I weren't making any money, I would still make this content for y'all. And maybe that is true for you. For me, if I don't have this job, I need to have a different job. I cannot afford, nor would I want to be doing all of this and not having some income from it. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not, I'm not independently wealthy. I really do find value in earning money. You deserve to earn money for the work that you're doing. So it's for me, it's kind of a self-respect thing. I would not be doing this if it were not making me money. And again, not in the beginning, not when you're building your channel, but once you are making money, I think you constantly have to be evaluating, am I making good choices? Am I getting good returns on my investments? What things am I doing that my audience is resonating with? What things aren't they resonating with? And where do I spend the money so that it makes the most amount of business sense? A lot of you watching this are creatives. This is not your strong suit. So outsource. Find somebody in your friend or family group that is really good with this kind of thing. Maybe somebody that has an MBA that can talk you through it. Maybe it's a bookkeeper. Maybe it's an accountant. It's totally normal to be a creative and have this side of things make you go, ugh, like, I don't want to talk about the IRS. I don't want to talk about return on investment. I don't want to talk about what I can write off and what I can't and profit and loss and all that. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it, but it's not okay to ignore it. So you really either have to get an education yourself, or you have to hire people or beg people, hopefully if you have some family members, if you're not profitable yet, that can help you, to help you with this kind of stuff, because money matters. It matters for your business, it matters for your family, and it matters for yourself. Okay, that's all we're going to do today. That was a lot of words. Hopefully this was helpful. Whatever you're creating today, I hope it is bringing you peace and joy, and just keep doing what you're doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.